Same Same But Tech is like a podcast that had a baby with an analogy, and it's beautiful. Mic drop, sound effects, angel voices, explosions. What's up? I'm Mauhan. I build and invest in tech companies for a living, and I host this podcast for free. In each episode of Same Same But Tech, I'll talk to the smartest, most geniuses in the game and have them use stories, not jargon, analogies, not PowerPoints, all to help you understand tech, society, and the multiverse a little bit better. All the tech goodness, none of the jargon. What's up? Welcome to Same Same But Collision, a live version of our podcast where we explain the most talked about tech buzzwords, one analogy at a time. Now today is super special because we're coming at you straight from Collision Conference from home, one of the biggest tech conferences in the world, all done today via video conference. But that's cool. That's all right with us. As a podcast, video is still new. It's exciting. So hello. How are all of you guys? I am Mauhan Zonoozy. I am the host of the Same Same But Tech podcast, as well as a principal at BCG Digital Ventures, Boston Consulting Group's corporate innovation and incubation arm. For all of you guys that hear my voice, this is my face. This is my attempt at a Corona beard. Thank you guys for joining us. Today we have a great topic. It's going to be all about open innovation. So let's kick it off. Let's see if we can't explain open innovation using an analogy.
So the analogy I'd use is driving to a destination. And let's say the destination is a growth town. So there are many ways, right? There are known ways and known paths to kind of get there. To me, open innovation is, why don't we try a different route? So to me, that's the analogy I'd use. It's instead of going a known path, to be kind of ability to explore different paths, but the same objective, which is driving growth.
I love that. Open innovation is like trying a different, faster route. And to really understand open innovation, I think it's kind of helpful to understand what it is not, which is closed innovation. Now, closed innovation is what corporates have been doing for decades. And when I think of closed innovation, I think of these secretive R&D or research and development groups behind these big closed metal doors. Typically, when you're doing corporate innovation, you're looking within. You're looking at your own internal ideas, your internal talent, your internal ways of thinking and of working. Open innovation sort of flips that on its head. It says, hey, let's look outside, beyond our walls. Maybe there are some people that are pretty smart. Maybe there are some ideas that are pretty good, technology that's game-changing, or even ways of thinking or approaching problems that's more agile or more innovative. Basically, I think you have to adopt that belief that there might be people in the world smarter than us. And I think, why not? As companies, we should actually open our doors to the flow of information and of ideas to let that stuff come in. A few examples might help us understand this a little bit better. Crowdsourcing new ideas or fresh takes is one form of open innovation. Facebook was famous for having hackathons early to generate new ideas. Leveraging open source software coding is another form of open innovation. Take Mozilla. Their Firefox browser was built by millions of developers all over the world. Building a corporate startup incubator or accelerator, that's another way to do open innovation. Think of Disney and their accelerator. Or even co-creating intellectual property with entrepreneurs, with startups, or with academic and research facilities. MIT Media Lab does a lot of that, actually. It's essentially an outside-in approach to innovation. And as a result, open innovation enables corporations who, and don't get me wrong, who move kind of slow to act a lot faster, a lot nimbler, a lot more like a startup. It's almost like open innovation is like a multi-billion-dollar startup.
My name is Alex Scion. I am the head of D10X for Citi Ventures for the Global Consumer Banking Group. The analogy to me of open innovation is that there's, if you're on a road and you have a known way to get to some place, like to an end goal, Open innovation is essentially like, hey, maybe there's a different path to go. Maybe it'll not only lead us to the direction where we want, but maybe even someplace better. So it's this idea that there is a shared objective for growth, like there's a destination that you want to hit, but it's an openness to kind of traveling different roads and exploring different paths that may, in some ways, it should be intended to land you in a better, faster place to get there.
You guys might remember Alex from the beginning of this segment. He's the one who gave us our analogy for open innovation. Now, the fun thing about open innovation is it's sort of a 2-for-1 in the sense that the word innovation is already buzzwordy enough. Open innovation is even nuttier. So maybe we can break that down.
Innovation is directly tied to the concept of growth. So in some ways, if you're not seeking growth, then I don't think it really makes sense to really focus on innovation. So to me, the first and foremost is that open innovation is about growth and pursuing growth strategies. Now let's kind of focus on the open part. The open part is that, to me, is about what kind of growth do you want to pursue. So when you're talking about kind of a business that's been around for a long time, so like a Citi, with a standard kind of established business model, everybody's focused on growth, right? Everybody's growing, but most people at the firm are focused on growth in the traditional construct, right? Known growth through known methods and known drivers, like pricing strategies, reward strategies, incentives for customers. Like you have a product, you have a problem solution fit, you know that you're just going to find distribution in your market. So to me, open innovation is a different kind of growth. So there's got to be a recognition that there's an inflection point in the growth path. Either you flattened out on the S curve and you kind of got to seek a new kind of strategy for growth. And that's not going to come from traditional thinking, right? So it's not going to come from the people who are kind of driving, the vast majority of people at the company that are driving growth through traditional methods today. It's going to come from a more open-minded way of thinking about different levers, different ways to think about problem solution fit. So to kind of sum it up, to me, open innovation is about organic growth that is explored in non-traditional spaces, places that are inherently unfamiliar or uncomfortable to the existing business model.
We also spoke to Bill Burnett, New York Times best-selling author of Designing Your Life and co-director of the Life Design Lab at Stanford's infamous D School. Bill literally teaches innovation for a living, so we thought, who better to help us understand it than him?
When I think of open innovation, I think of really human-centered innovation, because we've always taught at Stanford and at the D School that innovation comes first through empathy. We don't start with the problem, you start with people. And open innovation is just expanding that definition to include every stakeholder in the problem. So instead of just smart people going off into a room and trying to figure things out, we go out into the world and we talk to all the users, but we also talk to the people who are in the infrastructure to deliver whatever the solution is, or we talk to stakeholders that might be impacted by the decisions that designers make. And open innovation is a way of pulling all of those unheard voices together. It's important because there's a lot of unheard voices in our world right now. And there's a lot of bad design that doesn't respond to the needs of users. It doesn't integrate into their life or their work in a useful way. And, it's inefficient to deploy designs that aren't useful. And it's inefficient to exclude people, and particularly now when everybody needs to be at the table when we talk about this stuff. So open innovation is important because it pulls all the stakeholders together. It ensures that the solutions will be human-centered, that we're able to be used by humans. And it's important because it's really the way we're going to evolve into this fast-moving post-COVID world where all of the rules are changed. And we're going to need to innovate everywhere, and we're going to need to innovate continuously. And if we're going to get this whole economy back on track, we're going to need to innovate rapidly. Open innovation is the process and the platform that allows that to happen.
I really dug that. Open innovation is like human-centered innovation. Bill's entire point about bringing all the stakeholders together, I think, is pretty important. As corporations, a lot of times your thinking gets insular. How do you actually attract the cutting edge minds and technologies and get those voices involved in your process, especially when a lot of times they just don't have a seat at the table? I think that's the entire ethos of open innovation. So we also had a chance to speak to Paul Lafata. Paul Lafata is the head of an open innovation group at a massive car manufacturer.
Hi, I'm Paul Lafata, CEO of Daimler's Lab1886 USA. 1886 is a product innovation and venture studio, part of a global network of Daimler's labs across the world. We focus on discovering the mobility needs of society and developing products and services and new ventures to support those needs. While some of these ventures are very close to the core of Daimler and involve cars, a lot of them are outside of the core and are really involving adjacent businesses and services that really support the auto business, but not selling cars itself. The auto industry is changing. There's a big need for innovation. There's always new problems to solve, always new consumer demands, new technologies in the mix. So that means we're always looking for new ideas and new ways of solving those problems. We use open innovation in a number of different ways to get perspectives of new ways of doing things. I think one of those ideas is to get the perspective of customers directly. We spend a lot of time interviewing customers out into the field, understanding their daily lives, their mobility solutions that they use, what they need, what's missing, and then figuring out later on how to solve those problems. We also look at the internal employees, and those guys are in the weeds of their business every day, and they see certain insights that outsiders can't see. And so we look to them to figure out what are some of the business problems that they come across or some of the ideas that they have in order to solve some of those customer needs that only the insiders can really know. And then lastly, we look at startups that are doing things that are close to what we're already thinking about. We can get in touch with them and work with them directly, or we may be able to shape some of the work that they're doing already to more closely meet our needs. So I would have to say open innovation is very important to us. It's really a key component of what we do here at Lab1886, and we continue to use those methods every day to help solve problems for customers.
Okay, so what is open innovation? Alex from Citi said it's a different route all the way to Growth Town. I really like that one. He takes this how do we do things differently approach. Bill from Stanford's design school said open innovation is a lot like human-centered design. Let's get all the stakeholders together and try to solve all the needs. And Paul from Daimler Mercedes-Benz, he doubled down on open innovation being about getting new perspectives. When I reflect on all of those, and I think about open innovation, I think about the through line, I land on this idea or this analogy that open innovation is like a breath of fresh air. Whether that's a new driving route, new voices, new perspectives, I think open innovation is all about doing something differently, at least different than the usual. Something refreshing, something that might just teach you something or help you change for the better. For this audience at Collision, I think open innovation can be a key way or strategy to help us move our big, huge, Titanic-sized companies and have them act a little bit more like speedboats. You know, let's embrace outside voices. Let's embrace outside ideas, technologies. Let's think about new ways of working that might help our companies actually perform better. That said, I don't want you guys to only consider corporations when you think of open innovation. In fact, I think we should think about our countries, our governments, our societies. In those worlds, open innovation might also not be a bad idea to get away from siloed thinking. As leaders, let's start embracing voices that are typically left outside of our idea and our decision funnels. Let's start ideating together, let's co-create together, let's build things and embrace a broader swath of viewpoints, perspectives, and people. To me, I think that is the ethos, the belief, the vision behind open innovation. Hey, quick thanks to our guests, Alex, Bill, and Paul. Big shout out to BCG Digital Ventures, Boston Consulting Group's corporate innovation and incubation arm, and to the Collision Conference at home. Thank you so much for having us. You guys can find more Same But Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your ear candy. Thank you guys for watching for the first time. Spread love. Stick around for a quick Q&A session.